I've been asked 100 times why I left. People expect a dramatic moment, a slammed door, a final straw, a single decision that broke the camel's back. But that's not how it happens at the top. Not really. If I'm honest, I could write a book on it. But the short version? It was 1,000 small realizations, accumulating quietly, until one day I looked around and realized the company I'd given my career to wasn't the same company anymore. The shifts started around 2013. Back then, we were still close to the customer, physically, emotionally, operationally. Decisions were made by people who knew the campuses, the hospitals, the communities. Tulane, for example, those decisions used to be made in New Orleans, by leaders who could walk the grounds and feel the pulse of the place. A really bad idea. Then came Invent 2020. A global vision. A bold one. And on paper, it looked brilliant. But globalization is a delicate thing. If you stretch an organization too far, too fast, without reinforcing the connective tissue, it doesn't expand, it fractures. And that's exactly what happened. Suddenly, decisions for a university in Louisiana and/or Howard, for example, were being made 2 years in advance, in Paris. Not because Paris understood the customer better, but because the structure demanded it. More layers. More approvals. More distance. I watched leaders, good leaders, the kind who built the company's reputation brick by brick, get pushed out. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just systematically. Quietly. As if experience had become a liability. And when you remove the people who remember how the company became successful, you remove the company's memory itself. That was the first crack. The second came after 2021, when the strategy shifted from quality to prestige. Prestige is seductive. It photographs well. It impresses investors. It wins awards. But prestige doesn't run a kitchen. Prestige doesn't fix a supply chain. Prestige doesn't feed a student at 11 p.m. during finals week. We started investing in things that looked good instead of things that worked well. And I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. Then came the exodus. People who had spent their entire careers with us, decades of knowledge, relationships, intuition, were suddenly gone. Picked off by competitors who understood the value of what we were letting slip away. And when your best people leave, they don't just take their resumes. They take your future. I remember sitting in a Sodexo meeting one day, listening to a decision being made about a client none of us in the room had ever visited. And I thought, this isn't who we were. This isn't who we said we'd be. That was the moment I realized I was holding up a wall that the organization no longer cared to reinforce. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was clarifying. Disappointing, yes, because you don't give decades of your life to something without caring deeply about it. But also jubilant. Quietly, profoundly jubilant. Because stepping away gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Perspective. Integrity. Breath. I still care about the people inside. I still believe in the mission. I still hope the company finds its way back to the customer, back to the ground, back to itself. But I also know this. A company doesn't collapse all at once. It collapses one ignored warning at a time. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do, the most honest thing, is to stop pretending you can fix something that no longer wants to be fixed. When I walked away, people assumed I left because I was frustrated. And yes, frustration was part of it. But frustration alone doesn't make someone at my level leave. You don't abandon a ship because of a few rough waves. You leave when you realize the compass is broken and no one is allowed to fix it. What surprised me most after stepping out wasn't the relief. It was the silence. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think. Not the corporate echo chamber. Not the endless cascade of strategic priorities that contradicted each other every quarter. Not the noise of prestige projects that dazzled on PowerPoint but collapsed in practice. Just my own thoughts. And in that quiet, I started to understand what had really been happening. I realized how much of my energy had been spent trying to translate reality upward. Trying to explain to people thousands of miles away what a client actually needed. Trying to advocate for Sodexo frontline teams who were being asked to do more with less, than less with nothing. Leadership, at its core, is supposed to be a bridge. But somewhere along the way, the bridge became a wall. And I found myself on the wrong side of it. I remember sitting in a boardroom once, listening to a presentation about global alignment. Beautiful slides. Elegant language. A vision polished to a mirror shine. But as I listened, I kept thinking, alignment to what? To whom? And at what cost? Because alignment without context is just conformity. And conformity without purpose is the slowest form of decay. That's when it hit me. We weren't adapting to the world. We were retreating from it. The further decisions drifted from the customer, the more abstract they became. The more abstract they became, the more disconnected the outcomes were. And the more disconnected the outcomes were, the more pressure we put on the people closest to the work, the very people we should have been empowering. It's a strange thing to watch a company forget its own strengths. Stranger still to watch it celebrate the forgetting as progress. But here's the part one didn't expect. Leaving didn't make me cynical. It made me clear. I realized that disappointment is just the shadow side of caring. You can't be disappointed in something you never believed in. And I believed, deeply, in what we were supposed to be. That belief is what kept me there longer than I should have stayed. It's also what finally pushed me out the door. Because belief without integrity becomes self-betrayal. And I wasn't willing to betray myself for a strategy one no longer recognized. When I left, I didn't take anything with me, no bitterness, no resentment, no desire to see the company fail. What I took was perspective. I saw how many leaders had been quietly carrying the same doubts. How many were exhausted from trying to hold together a structure that was being redesigned from the top down without regard for the foundation. How many had left not because they wanted to, but because staying meant compromising the very principles that made them leaders in the first place. And that's when I understood something I wish I'd learned earlier. A company can lose its way long before it loses its market. The collapse doesn't start with numbers. It starts with culture, with choices, with the slow erosion of listening. People think collapse is loud, but it's not. Collapse is quiet. It's the sound of warnings ignored, of expertise dismissed, of distance widening until the people making decisions can no longer see the people living with them. Walking away didn't feel like quitting. It felt like returning to myself, to my values, to the kind of leadership that doesn't need a title to exist. And if there's one thing I hope the company learns, truly learns, it's this. Prestige can be bought. Quality must be earned. And trust is built one decision at a time and lost the same way. I didn't leave because I stopped believing in what we could be. I left because the company stopped believing in it. And sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is to walk away before you become part of the problem.